All right, hello wine drinking people, and it is time for more of what I had to drink yesterday, and in this case, well, it is yesterday. We're filming this the day after our Valentini tasting and finishing up the month of April. It has been an absolutely incredible month. The only tasting we had to postpone was the Cheval Blanc tasting, but this Valentini event I've been looking forward to all year. I remember the first time I tasted the wines of Edoardo Valentini. It was a bottle of 1984 Trebbiano that I bought on closeout from the old distributor for like 20 bucks, and this white wine was one of the most incredible white wines I had ever tasted. It reminded me of Le Montrachet in concentration and richness, and then I started to seek everything Valentini. And every year when I go to Vin Italy, I would go to one of the top restaurants in Verona and order a bottle of white and red, and if they had the rosé, a bottle of rosé off their wine list, and take it back with me to the United States, because these wines are incredibly hard to find, not only in the United States, but in Italy. Only the top establishments have them. Here is a producer. This family's been making wine for several hundred years. They have records going back to the 19th century, the 1800s, but they say it goes back even further to the 17th century, the 1600s, that their family's been making wine in Abruzzo. And they're mainly growers. I don't know of another wine producer that makes wine 50% of the time. In the 1980s, I know he only produced 5 vintages of his red. And with his whites, I don't know how many of white, but he doesn't make these wines every year. He only makes them when he feels like the quality is at its highest level. Trebbiano, the second most widely planted grape varietal in the world. Trebbiano is also known as Uni Blanc in France, and they make they grow an ocean of this wine to make fortified wines with cognacs and things like that. But, you know, it doesn't turn it in. It doesn't make very interesting wine in most places. That's why it's hard for most people to believe that this is Trebbiano, because like I said, the wine just has this concentration and richness that can only come from a producer that is passionate about the way he brings up these grapes. So let's start out with the dazzling array of Trebbianos that we had, and we started out with the 1999 vintage. It's amazing that this wine still as fresh as it is, pining kind of cocoa notes of the Asian pear and quince-like fruit on the nose, some nutty aromas coming in, and starting to, after it opened up for a couple hours, you started to get some of this lovely honeyed character and this floral notes coming out. A really beautiful wine, wonderful complexity, and like I said, really needed a couple hours to open up and really show its stuff. You know, this clone of Trebbiano that Valentini uses, he claims he's the only person that has this clone. It's exclusive to him and him only, and I would tend to believe it based on the quality of this wine. The 1999, just killer, a really long finish, and I had these wines open for 12 hours on my desk. Even better the second day. Unbelievable. All right, the 2003 Trebbiano, this is a vintage that was marred by extreme heat, and you noticed it in this wine. You still had that cocoa and kind of orange peel, that flinty minerally, and that lovely pear fruit. After this was open an hour, man, just the honey and the fruit coming out in this wine, this honeysuckle floral aroma, incredible richness on the tongue, just a lovely creaminess, this orange blossom and mineral nuance coming through on the finish, ×2 that was in the 99, that honey note in this 2003, and still lovely freshness, though wonderful balance, most excellent stuff, the 2003. 2004 had a little bit of spritz when I first opened it up, and I decanted these white wines. That's right, folks, I decanted them and poured them back in the bottle, double decanted them, and had a little bit of effervescence in it. It had that Asian pear and cocoa and orange peel, those honey notes, not quite as ripe as 2003, had lots of fruit, but some lovely floral tones as well, just a little more restraint than 2003, really bright and focused on the palate, a lovely oily texture to this wine as well, really complex and nuanced, and lovely richness on the finish. This was my favorite white. Well, the 99 was my favorite white, but my favorite white of the young releases, and I can see the 04 going along the same lines as this 99 as it gets some more bottle age and bouquet. Well, one of Italy's most sought-after collectibles, Valentino's Montepulciano, and this is wine has trophy status among collectors. I remember when I told the gentleman that all these wines came from one cellar last night, well, except for the 03, which came out of my collection, and I told this gentleman about these wines, and I can't believe now he has the largest collection of them in South Florida, but that is great because we are going to get to do this again. That's what that means. All right, well, this wine is a little bit of a rustic wine. It's a later harvest example of Montepulciano, and in great vintages. It's only produced in great vintages. This wine needs 10 or 20 years in the bottle to really start to blossom. The 2001, not even starting to come out of its shell yet, had this really spectacular nose of dark Kirsch, kind of animal-like qualities, espresso, bittersweet chocolate, lovely complexity, and big and chewy on the palate, as I mentioned, just starting to come out of its shell. Layers of dark spice, those animal-like aromas. Big and chewy tannins, but still, I mean, rather smooth. Really lovely complexity on the finish. Long, and that mocha note in the wine. An excellent match for the smoked poblano mole sauce that Tony did with the short rib, man. That was just singing, those two, the 01 and the 90 and the 85, the wines that were a little bit younger and had a little bit more of that, were great with that dinner course. The 1990, a blockbuster, and on most people's scorecard, the wine of the night. I mean, you know, needed a little time. It was amazing. It seemed darker in color than the 01 even, and maybe had a little more tannin to it. Dark earth, black truffle espresso, tar, blackberry fruit, a slight musky note that really blew off as the wine opened up. All the wines we had were really good examples of what they were. A huge wine with layers of big tannins. Like I said, maybe even bigger than the 2001, and we had more votes for this wine. Well, almost as many votes for this one as the 1975. It was kind of a split decision tonight. You know, the only one that didn't show well on the scorecard was the 85. I don't think we had any picks for that, but it was excellent as well. And the 1990, just a killer bottle of Montepulciano. The 85, like I said, had a little bit of damp earth to it, maybe a little bit of oxidization on the nose, dark spices, espresso, bitter cocoa, dark meats, light smoke, really complex though, and lovely softness on the palate. This is a wine that's probably right where it needs to be in terms of the tannin level, and you know, the little musty note and that oxidization, you know, not quite as evident on the palate, but you know, a little bit off-putting on the nose, so maybe I didn't score this wine as high as it would have got with a perfect nose, but just excellent bottle of Montepulciano drinking at its peak. The 75 Emilio Beppe, we did have one other wine other than Valentini. There is another great producer in Montepulciano, believe it or not, even though there's an ocean of plunk there. Another shining light. And these two producers, I guess, well, Valentini doesn't really care that Emilio Beppe's second place, because I think it bothers Emilio Beppe that his wines are not considered as great as Valentini's, and this night really proved it. The 1975 was a nice bottle of wine, had lovely tobacco spice on the nose, kind of a dried beef jerky note, some brown spices, and some sun-dried fruit there, but, you know, like silk on the palate, really soft, but much more evolved than the 75 Valentini wine. A nice tangy finish, still had some freshness, just hanging in there on a thread. The 1975 Valentini, the wine of the night, in my opinion. This wine still had amazing freshness. You know, the bottle we had a short fill. I was a little worried after we opened it up, but man, after this wine had a chance to open up, just an amazing array of spice and fruit, smoky, meaty notes, tobacco, dark cocoa, dried flowers, herbs, wonderful complexity on the nose, and wonderful color, like I said. I mean, it looked like it was 20 years younger than the 75 Emilio Beppe. Smooth and polished, everything in lovely balance and harmony here. Wine of the night for me because it was drinking so nicely. I think the 90 is going to be here when it's 15 years older, but right now, man, all of the 75 Valentini I can find, I'm going to put in my belly. Excellent stuff. That's what I had to drink last night at the Valentini tasting. I'm your host, Andrew Lampasoni, signing off for the Wine Watch, saying, remember, always drink the good stuff first.